I never believed in ghost stories. Not until what happened in the fall of 2019, when I was sent out to perform structural testing on Breakwater Point Light, a 19th century lighthouse off the coast of northern Oregon. Breakwater Point isn't on most maps. It's a jagged piece of rock surrounded by freezing water and seagulls, maybe 40 minutes by boat from the mainland. The lighthouse was automated decades ago, but the original tower still stood, old and leaning next to a crumbling keeper's house, like two skeletons waiting for the tide. I thought it would be a quiet job, just 2 days alone, run some diagnostics, check the base, go home. But what happened during those 48 hours, it changed me forever. I got dropped off mid-morning. The sky was low with fog, and the waves tossed the boat as we pulled up to the metal dock, slick with algae. I stepped off and hauled my pack up the stone stairs. The gate creaked when I opened it, and the house smelled like mold and sea rot. Everything was broken inside. The furniture splintered, the windows cracked. But when I stepped into the tower, that's when it got strange. The inside of the lighthouse was clean. Not new, just clean. The brass railings polished, the walls dry, no bird poop, no trash. The beacon glass was dusty but whole, like someone had been caring for it, like someone still lived here. Then I saw it. An oil lantern sitting right beneath the beacon. Not electric, not fake. Real metal, real glass. Not dusty either. The glass was smudged, like it had been touched recently. No one was supposed to be here for months. I unpacked, laid my sleeping bag at the tower base, bolted the iron door shut from the inside, and tried to sleep. I woke around 2 in the morning. There was an orange glow above me, flickering slow like candlelight. I looked up the spiral stairway and my heart stopped. The beacon chamber was glowing. The oil lantern. I ran up the stairs. The door to the beacon deck was wide open. There was no wind, no noise, just fog drifting in. The lantern was lit, its flame steady and silent, but no one was there. I stepped onto the walkway and shone my flashlight down into the rocks below. Nothing. Just the black ocean and a wall of mist. I blew the flame out, locked the lantern in a utility box, and went back to sleep, telling myself it was just leftover oil, maybe a trick of light. But in the morning, the lantern was gone. Vanished. I tried to focus on the job, took some soil samples, walked to the edge of the cliff, checked the readings, but then I saw something on the stone behind the house. Footprints, barefoot, long, thin, like someone walking carefully, heel to toe. They weren't mine, I wore boots, and they hadn't been there yesterday. I followed them for a few steps, and then they just ended in a patch of moss. No turning back, no trail, no sign of where they went. By sunset, I radioed the Coast Guard, asked if anyone had been out here. They said no one in 6 months. That night I didn't sleep. Around 1 in the morning, I heard wood creaking, then footsteps on the spiral stairs. Slow, steady, heavy. I grabbed my flashlight and pointed it up. No one was there, but the sound kept coming, 1 step at a time, like someone invisible was descending toward me. By morning I wanted off the island, but the fog was too thick. The boat couldn't come. I was stuck. I moved into the old house instead of the tower, boarded the windows, locked the door, tried to convince myself it was nothing, just my brain playing tricks. But just before sunrise there came a knock, 3 hard knocks from under the floor. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then came a dragging sound, something heavy scraping below me, moving slowly back and forth, like it was pacing. 5 minutes later, it stopped. I waited for daylight, packed everything and stood by the dock until the Coast Guard boat arrived. The guy said I looked like a ghost. I didn't say a word. A week later, I got a call from the state rep who sent me. He sounded shaken. They sent another crew to verify my report, and when they opened the utility box, the lantern was back. The same one, but the glass was cracked, and inside the soot, someone had written a message. "You blew me out. I never went back." I was a foghouse keeper once. That's what we called them in the early 90s. Lighthouse stations with weather monitoring rigs along the northeastern coast. I worked for NOAA, doing barometric tracking and storm reports. But in the summer of 1992, I was posted alone at Fort Wilder Light, a decommissioned lighthouse off the coast of Rhode Island. It wasn't a pretty tower, not white, not red. It was squat concrete with rusted black iron railings. It looked more like a prison than a lighthouse. Built in 1893, replaced by newer systems, but NOAA still had an experimental weather rig mounted on top. Someone had to watch it. That someone was me. To this day, I still can't explain what I experienced there, but I'll try. The first week was slow. Fog rolled in heavy every day. Nothing strange about that. I logged data, ran instrument checks, and read cheap paperbacks. When the power flickered, the generator worked. Otherwise, I used an oil lamp, and there was no phone line, just a single emergency radio. I lived in a small room in the base of the tower. A cot, a desk, a barrel stove for heat. The isolation didn't bother me. What got to me was the silence. Not peace. Silence. Real silence. The kind that feels thick and pressing, like you're underwater. No birds, no waves, no sound at all. By day 3, I started to feel like I wasn't alone. There was a mirror on the stairwell landing, an old circular one mounted high up, left over from the old days. The glass was cloudy, but it reflected enough to be useful. On my 5th night, I was carrying a cable spool up the stairs when I passed the mirror, and I saw a face, not mine. Just for a second, pale with sunken cheeks and dark eyes. Standing behind me, I dropped the spool and spun around. The stairwell was empty. Nothing above, nothing below, but when I looked back at the mirror, the face was still there. Then it blinked and vanished. I didn't sleep that night, the 3rd week. The equipment started acting strange. The humidity sensors spiked at exactly 3:12 a.m., 3 nights in a row. The barometer reset itself to 0, then froze. But the worst was the audio. The rig had a parabolic microphone aimed at the sea to record foghorn feedback at night. I'd check for distortions. One night, I heard breathing. Not the wind, not static. Breathing, slow and human, like someone leaning into the mic. Then, a whisper. "Still here." I played it back over and over. It never changed. I reported it to NOAA. They said it was interference. But I knew better. On the 23rd night, I woke up cold. Not because of the temperature, but because something felt wrong, like something was in the room with me. The oil lamp was low, but I could still see shadows on the wall. One of them wasn't mine. It stood near the door, tall, shoulders hunched, head tilted to one side like it was watching me. I didn't move. The shadow crept forward, then disappeared. I jumped up, blocked the door with the desk, and spent the rest of the night holding a fire axe and watching the corner. When the sun rose, I found words scrawled in the soot near the lamp. "Let me keep it." I didn't understand. The next morning I tore through the storage shelves looking for answers. I found a notebook, leather-bound, wet with rot, hidden behind rusted batteries. It wasn't mine. The name inside said E. Farnsworth, dated 1964. The first entries were normal: weather readings, fog cycles, beacon logs. But by the third week, the tone changed. He waits in the fog, the one who keeps. I don't sleep anymore. Then, later, he says I must leave. Something behind. Something to keep. The last page was smeared, but the message was clear. Don't blow out the lamp. He hates the dark. That night my lamp refused to light. I decided to leave. I packed at dawn, radioed for pickup, then climbed to the beacon deck one last time. The fog was thick, thicker than I'd ever seen. I stepped outside, onto the catwalk. At the far end, someone was standing. No coat, no gear, just an old keeper's uniform, skin bloated, gray eyes like ink. He raised one hand and pointed downward, toward the base of the tower. I ran. Halfway down, I tripped on something across the landing. The notebook opened to the last page. A new line, written in fresh ink. Leave the light, or leave yourself. I threw it into the sea. The boat came late that day. They said I looked like I hadn't slept in a week. I hadn't. Back at HQ, I wrote my report, left out most of the truth. No one would believe me. 2 months later, NOAA shut down the rig. They said corrosion and remote access problems. No one's stayed at Fort Wilder since. But when the fog gets thick and the wind cuts quiet, sometimes you can still hear the beacon sputter on, and underneath the static, if you listen close, you might hear him whisper, "Still here."